we had about 46 people. Yep, so we're recording at the moment. We had about 46 people who registered. So there are 28 of us on the platform now, and we're just kind of waiting for people to come in. We don't want to keep going back and forth, back and forth. Like I said earlier, it'll be delightful to see people's faces. So if you can show your cameras, that'll be fantastic. Evelyn is joining us. Thank you, Evelyn. There's Oladuni. We can see Oladuni. Thank you very much. Olahika is joining and showing her screen. Thank you so much. It's good to see your faces. Absolutely delightful to see people's faces. Thank you very much, Ngozi Onyakusi. Onyakusi. My apologies if I don't get the spelling right. Thank you. Can you just put something on the chat box? How is the weather where you are? Let's get to hear from you. How is the weather where you are? Is it sunny and bright? It is dull where I am. Absolutely dull where I am.
The British are so obsessed with weather, isn't it?
We're very obsessed with the weather because the weather determines a lot. And do you know one thing? I always say to people that if somebody tells you you are as unstable as the British weather, that it is actually a curse, quote and unquote. The person is actually cursing you. If they tell you you're very unstable,
that's Monday.
If they tell you you are also stable as the British weather, then that means there's a problem, because the British weather, you can have winter in the morning, autumn in the afternoon, and summer at the same time, and suddenly everything just changed to spring in the evening. That is how it is like. Okay, there are 26 of us. I think there's some bit of internet problems. People are dropping in and out. We're just going to have to kickstart because we have 2 hours of a jam-packed, absolutely jam-packed training that, if you ask me, ideally, it should be like a full-day training. But however, we understand that our journalists are extremely busy people, and we are very busy as well. So we're going to try and condense everything as much as possible. It's a full pack, like I said, and I'm just going to give you a quick roll down of what we're going to be doing today. And I'm just saying thank you to those who are showing their screen. Thank you very much, Sunday, for showing your screen. Ngozi, thank you. It'll be nice. When I say screen, I mean your mobile device. We can see you. Thank you very much. It's good to be able to see ourselves face to face, because in these days of, everything that has become totally virtual, it warms the heart when you can see a face to the voice that you're hearing. It's absolutely warming and delightful. So I'm just going to run you quickly through what we'll be doing today. So we be having, of course, we know the reason why we're here today is a training for our media colleagues on suicide reporting and what we call responsible suicide reporting. Not saying in any way that there has been irresponsible suicide reporting, not at all. But we're here to kind of just talk a little bit about the guidelines. And the reason why we put this together is because for some of you may be aware, we have 2 gentlemen in the house, Dr. Olufemi Oluwatayo, who I'm going to be spotlighting now, and also Martins Ifije. These are the 2 authors of a book. Oh, okay. These are the 2 authors of a book, The Morning After. We're going to talk a little bit about that book later. The Morning After. They're the two authors of the book. And in the book, they did write a lot and made a lot of recommendations. I don't know how many of you have a copy of the book. How many of you have a copy of the book where you are? I'm trying to, but my background is not allowing me to. Okay, thank you very much. It'd be nice if you can just indicate in the chat box if you all have a copy of the book. Like to know, just say yes. A copy of the book. I'm holding it up, but
we could not distribute it.
I'm just going to.
Hello.
It's not been distributed.
Yes, because the bags came in late, Wednesday evening, very late, so we couldn't do anything. But I've given 1 or 2 people. 1 or 2 people have the book.
Okay.
Yeah, that was exactly what happened.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for letting us know. So that means that you'll be getting a copy of this book. Dr. Luwatayo, can you just show the book again? Because my screen is blurring it out because of the background. That's a copy of the book that you're going to be getting alongside with a fantastic conference bag. And that's courtesy of, that's courtesy of this organization, of this organizing, this collaboration between the Health Writers Association of Nigeria, Retreat Healthcare Nigeria, and the News Foundation Nigeria. And of course, there's author Martin Sifidi as well. So you would all get the copies of the book. Well, not all, those who have registered and those that Ms. Chioma is very much aware of, those who have subscribed and those who Ms. Chioma sent the details to, they'll be getting a copy of the book. The reason why we put this training together today is because of a lot of recommendation and a lot of issues that have come up around suicide reporting. We're going to be talking about that today. And like I said, I'm just doing a quick rundown of what we're doing today. So we'll be having first presentation from Dr. Luke Bile. Dr. Luke Bile is the former permanent secretary in Lagos State for Health. And he'll be talking to us about the role of mental disorder in suicide. And he'll be talking to us about the role of mental disorder in suicide, why suicide should be seen as a mental health issue, which I think is a major, major thing. Why is suicide a mental health issue? So Dr. Luke Bile will, for 20 minutes, take us through that. Then from there, your humble self. My name is Lade Olugbemi. My apologies, I did not introduce myself at the start. My name is Lade Olugbemi. I'm your moderator for today, and I'll be taking you through this. But at the same time, just a little bit about who I am. I am a lawyer. I am a mental health advocate. And I run an organization called News Foundation in Nigeria, and also News Charity Incorporated organization in UK. It's actually a charity in the UK. Can we please mute our devices if we're not speaking? Wale, can you please put an eye and mute devices, and please let people in. People are waiting in the waiting room. Please let them in. So I'll be talking about the role of the social and legal impact of responsible journalism or responsible reporting. And then we're going to have our how do I call him now? Our author, if you notice, I've actually tagged him as author Martins Ifije, who will be talking to us about the WHO guidelines and the need to stop sensational reporting of suicide. Martins is a PhD student in Rutgers University and is also a correspondent, a reporter, a journalist. Whichever appellation you want to take, you can pick any one of them. And of course, from there, we believe very strongly. And when I say we, that is the three of us, or the four of us who have brought this together. That is the Health Writers Association, the News Foundation, and also the Retreat Healthcare Nigeria. We believe very strongly that it's not just about us talking. We don't want a situation where it's just about conversation. We want to hear from all of us, from reporters, from both health, both crime, from reporters. We want to hear from everybody. What has your experience been? What's the right, what's the wrong? There's no right or wrong, but there's some guidelines that we're going to be giving here. So we're going to go into breakout rooms for about 20 minutes. The breakout room will be manned by myself, where we're going to be looking at the social and legal impact of suicide reporting. Martins will be talking to journalists as well about, just talking about what is responsible reporting. And there will be a breakout room that will be manned, that will be coordinated by Dr. They'll be looking at the psychiatric, quote unquote, end of it. Why suicide? Is suicide a mental health issue? Is it a public health issue? Is it a social issue? That will be discussed. And then we'll come back, and then we're going to get feedback from the various breakout sessions, and we'll have a panel. On the panel, we're going to have Mr. Sam Eferaro. For those of you who have seen the posters, you know who Mr. Sam is. We're going to have Mr. Shola Ogunjikpe and also Ms. Chioma Obina, who is the president of the Health Writers Association. And then we're going to have a final roundup. And that's what it's going to be like for today. So thank you so much, everyone. For those who are putting their devices, those who are putting their screens on, thank you very much for putting your screens on so we can see your faces. It's good to see everybody's. It's absolutely good to see everybody's faces. So what are we doing today? We've talked about it. Just to give you some bit housekeeping rules, everybody's muted. If you are not speaking, can we please ask that you kindly mute your devices? Please mute your devices if you're not speaking. If you have any questions at any time to ask, please just put them on the chat box. We have people who are manning the chat box, who are checking the chat box for us, and they will let me know just in case I haven't picked up any question. They would unmute themselves and let me know. It's a 2-hour session, and we're going to be rolling off very, very straight now. If you at any time you have any information you want to pass across directly to me, please feel free to send a direct message to me in the chat box to Authormatis and also to Ms. Chioma and also to Dr. Oluwatayo. And that is it for the day. Dr. Olubile, are you ready? I can see that your device is turned off. Are you ready, Dr. Olubile?
I am ready, yes.
Sorry, Lade, I need to make an introduction about the recommendations.
Absolutely, my apologies. Thank you for reminding. Thank you, my sincere apologies. Over to you now. I'm just going to put you on. Fantastic.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Olufemi Oluwatayo. I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm a co-author of the book, Morning After with Martins. It's a pleasure having you all. We have a very compact training for today. So I thought the best way to start is to actually let you know what's in the book and what the recommendations are. So we have 15 recommendations in this book for our colleagues in the media industry. So I'll just quickly show you what they are. And then we want to see whether people agree with us or not at the end of the training. So like they will be conducting like a little poll at the end, and whether you think this is all great or you think there are things that you don't agree with. I'm a psychiatrist. I practice in the UK, and I have a practice in Lagos as well. I do retreats in Ikorodu. And so we do a lot of work in Nigeria doing training and in mental health. So what's in the book? We've made a case for these recommendations in the book. The first thing we would say in the book is when people talking about suicide, to avoid giving detailed description of the method used. The reason why, we'll see as we go along today, as we're talking about it, we know why. The second one is to avoid repetition of the story. The third one was to avoid placing the story in prominent part of the paper or the news story. Next one is to avoid giving specific locations of the spot that is used for the suicide if it's a public place. The next recommendation was for journalists to avoid giving personal details or photograph of the person involved in suicide. The next one was to avoid publishing suicide notes. The next one was to avoid the use of the word commit in the report. If you cannot use the word commit, what word should you use? This is also in the book, and I'm sure it will come up in conversations today. The next thing that journalists need to think about is treating the disease with dignity, even though the person might be dead. The way we report has to treat the person with dignity. We don't want to say things that will make even the story much worse for the person, even though they're late. The report has to be sensitive to the families of the bereaved. What the way it's written, how does that family? We talk about the need for special precaution when reporting celebrity suicide. That's a big one because a lot of celebrities, people actually influence their followers. So when it's a celebrity that died from suicide, we should avoid, we should be very careful how we report it. A very controversial one is this one about whether we should use the word suicide in the report at all, because there are many reasons why that might not be appropriate, because sometimes you're not even sure whether it's suicide or not. The person is dead, but you don't actually know the cause of death. The coroners or even the police will say, yes, it's actually could look like that when it's actually a suicide. An important part is when people report it done is to educate people and to give advice on how they can get help, people who are feeling suicidal. So there should be numbers, telephone numbers or website where people can get help in the report. The other one we've made is health correspondents should be reporting on suicides. Should they be limited to them alone or not? And of course, we said journalists should be trained regularly. This is the beginning. This is the first training we're doing. We hope to do more. We hope to do this as a regular event in collaboration with Herwan. So those are the 14 records. Actually, there are 15, but I've condensed them into 14. So I think we will have a lot to talk about during this training today. It's a shame that people have not read the book, but those have read it. At the very end of the book is the recommendations. So the last chapter is all about recommendations. And we make a case of those recommendations in the rest of the book. So thank you. I'll hand over to Dr. Lubile now. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. If you stop sharing, Femi, thank you. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And like I said earlier, and I think Dr. Oluwatayo said it as well. Part of what we're going to do today is there's going to be a poll. Would like to know whether you agree with these 15 or 14 recommendations. We're also going to be sending out, okay, bear with me one moment. That's it. Okay, fantastic. We're also going to be sending out a feedback form to everyone. Who kindly ask you to please fill them. You get an email from us. For those of you who registered on Eventbrite, can I ask that you kindly please check in? You know, when you register on Eventbrite, can you check in on Eventbrite that you're here? If you did not register on Eventbrite and you're here, can you please put your email address on the chat box? Please put your email address, your name, of course, with your name, the media house you're representing, and your email address. We could just kindly do that. If you registered on Eventbrite, don't worry, we have all of your details already. But if you did not, please just post something up on the chat box. And I'm going to be going over to you now, Dr. Lubile. Over to you, Dr. Lubile. I'll be sharing Dr. Lubile's slide on the screen now.
Waiting for the screen to be shared. All right, thank you very much, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted that this is taking place because it's something that I think is very important. It's informing, and I tell you why. It's the fourth estate of the realm, as represented by the journalist profession, and specifically the people who are charged with health reporting. They are the interface between the health project and the generality of the public. And really, nothing in health succeeds without the buy-in and say-so of the health journalists. So the quality of information to the public is defined, enhanced, or limited by the quality of information that is available to the health journalists. Unfortunately, it also means that the attitudes that are inherent in the health journalists help to define and limit the attitudes that are prevalent in society. We all come from the same society, so we all came up, we all grew up with the same set of inbuilt attitudes, and which include some prejudices. And if we are growing up, an educational experience involves getting rid of them or working our way through them. And no matter how ambitious a society's health project is, if it tries to bridge the gulf and reach the public directly, it's not as successful as if it carries the fourth estate along. So you are very powerful people, and any effort that is invested in training health journalists is effort well made. This is a particularly important subject, the matter of suicide. It sounds morbid, but it is relevant to all of the world. And I'm going to try to keep it very basic. What are we talking about? At the risk of oversimplifying, as I've said, I'll leave out any technical description so that we can flow together. Suicide is a description, a name that is given for an action of that involves deliberate harm to oneself, leading to the death of the individual. That is when it is so-called successful suicide. I mean, if suicide is used in an unqualified manner, that means the person, this has happened. That means the person has inflicted harm deliberately on himself and it has led to his death. Suicidal behavior refers to behavior such as deliberate injury to self, like cutting one's wrists or taking an overdose of a poisonous substance. And the purpose of having it as suicidal behavior is that it appears to be directed at causing death or severe injury to the individual in question. Suicidal attempt, which is a description that is frowned on by many people, including, I'm sure, Dr. Luwataya, because it's supposed to carry a pejorative connotation. And it also appears to carry an implication that the person has done something criminal. So deliberate self-harm is probably a neater and less injurious term to use for descriptions. It sounds almost like any other medical category and just describes something that the person has done. The person has deliberately sought to harm himself. So it's more sanitized as a description than talking about suicidal attempt. But all of this is semantics. The real core of the matter is to look at our own attitudes and see how we can bring them up to par and then put them into the core of the work that we do. Suicide happens all over the world. It's more common in some countries than some others. There are some countries that are regarded as high incidence countries, a place like Sri Lanka. The demarcation point is when you have like up to 30 people out of 100,000 in a year on the population deliberately self-harming, resulting in death. In some countries, the incidence is not that great, such as Egypt and Nigeria. The marker for that is when you have fewer than 10 people out of 100,000 members of the population killing themselves in a year. The rate that is often quoted for Nigeria is 6.9%, 6.9 out of every 100,000 per year. And the total number of suicides that take place in a year all over the world is roughly 800,000. Coming home to the specifics, there aren't a lot of studies, but there have been studies and surveys. And the most important one that I'd like to bring to your attention was the Lagos State Mental Health Survey that was carried out by Adewuya and other people in 2015 at the behest of the Lagos State Ministry of Health. And it showed that 7.6% of the adult population of the state had entertained suicidal ideas in the previous 2 weeks. It's important. What we're talking about is ideas that is somewhere in the course of the previous 2 weeks. 7.6% of the adult population, male and female surveyed, had thought either in passing or seriously about the possibility of killing themselves. So it shows that we have a significant problem, both in terms of potential and in terms of actual completed suicides in Nigeria. The age group all over the world that is most affected is people who are 30 years and younger. Next slide, please. I'd like to go to the next slide, yes. What are the associations of suicide? That is, what are the predictors? What are the things that you can look at and say, these are common correlates of suicidal behavior? In some family, you can find a repeated pattern of people, an uncle, an auntie, a cousin having committed suicide in the past. So the tendency may run in some families. some people may have
Can you
a
please
history.
mute your device? If you're not speaking, please mute your device. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Olubile. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Maybe you should just mute everybody except the speaker. Okay, some people may have a history of repeated incidents. That is, the same person may over and over again carry out self-injurious behavior. And sometimes it will terminate, one of the incidents will terminate in actual death. The stigma associated with the previous incident may itself become a reason for suicidal behavior in some people. The glamorization of suicide in the press, that's where you ladies and gentlemen, or you gentlemen come in, since all the press are gentlemen in protocol terms. The glamorization of suicide in the press and on social media may lead to copycat suicidal behavior in some people. Social media bullying and modeling, as well as availability of information concerning easy ways of carrying out the act of suicide, unfortunately may itself increase the likelihood of such behavior happening. We've heard of young children, of teenagers who, just because they watch videos and other portrayals, other descriptions of easy suicide, copied the act and then killed themselves. Attempted suicide, for a better description, people who, the act of carrying out self-injurious behavior is more common statistically among females, but the actual definitive suicide, as in the completed act, there's a slight male preponderance. While they feel culturally determined, why is it important to see suicide as illness rather than as criminal behavior or as some sensational thing that needs to be splashed across the front page of tomorrow's issue of Vanguard or any other newspaper? The reasons are as follows. While a few culturally determined incidents of suicide occur from time to time, for instance, among the Japanese, what they call seppuku, and also all of us have heard about euthanasia on demand, which is available in some countries. Those ones are generally excluded when people talk about suicide, and they are not, the stigma that is attached to the not common run of suicides, they are exempted from it. But the truth, the general observation is that stigma is attached to suicide all over the world. This pertains not just, unfortunately, this pertains to not just to the individual, but also to the family, especially the nuclear family. In our culture in Nigeria, in all the various cultures of Nigeria, suicide is frowned upon, irrespective of whatever may have led to it. It is a shame on the family from most people's perception. And in many cultures, a religious funeral will not be offered to the individual who are through suicide. In some places, they will not even be buried in conventional burial sites. In traditional culture, for instance, if you read Things Fall Apart, you'd know that a person who commits suicide is just, the body is left in the forest rather than buried in the normal burial site of people, because it's meant to be, it's supposed to be an abomination. Next slide, please. Please move on. Existing Nigerian law borrows a leaf from both the antiquated British law that formed the basis of our legal system, and also our culture and the way it views suicide. So it sees suicide as a criminal act, and the survivor of a suicide scenario is regarded as a culprit and not a victim or a patient. That means already there is judgment, and not the person is visited with judgment or judgmental attitude from people, both the people directly involved in dealing with the incident and even observers, and is not treated with compassion or empathy. The family and others are regarded as guilty by association. The press, both the professional press and the citizen press of the social media, in their approach to reporting suicide, often reflect the suicide as sensational criminal incident attitude, rather than the suicide as illness approach, which is the evidence-based, humane, and modern approach that we are recommending to you, and that hopefully all of us will have by the time we conclude this engagement. The press effect, unfortunately, to date, amplifies the damage caused by ignorance and stigma in our society. There is a need for a paradigm shift, very, very clearly. Yes, I'm on course. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Next slide, please. Yes, please move my slide.
Yeah.
More than 90%, now let's get to some hard facts. More than 90% of people who commit suicide suffer from an associated physical or mental health condition. This may be chronic physical illness such as terminal cancer, painful conditions where the pain is almost impossible to bear or to control. The overwhelmingly significant correlation, of course, is with mental illness. That is, while some people with chronic physical illnesses commit suicide, the overwhelming majority of people with illness who commit suicide are the ones who have some diagnosable mental disorder. The commonest mental disorder associated with depression associated with suicide is depression, and others are anxiety, panic disorder, schizophrenia, substance abuse, and others in that category. We all aspire to be citizens of a modern, humane society, given our collective antecedents. That modern humane society will not just happen. It will have to be built and tenderly and lovingly molded. We are now at the point of defining what is the change that we need. And the change comes from that preamble that what we aspire to, we want to be citizens of a modern, humane society, whether it is Nigeria or the UK or wherever, okay? Predominantly, we are talking about the Nigerians now. And given our collective antecedents and given all the things that I've said before about what our culture generally, how our culture has perceived suicide in the past and what basis those negative perceptions have been built on. The change means that we have to change our perceptions, starting from enhancing our information base. Now we know what causes suicide. Now we know where most people who commit suicide are coming from. So it is on the basis of that actual information that we should go on to start affecting our own attitudes, our own inherent attitudes, before we start trying to influence others. As I've said, the press as the fourth estate of the realm has a vital role to play in educating the citizenry and shaping public perception concerning suicide and other mental health issues. All too often, unfortunately, the press themselves, without intending to do so, have been positories of negative social attitudes. The reason for this is not hard to fake. We all come from the same society. We all drink from the same cup. So we were all brought up the same way. And so it doesn't require you to be a bad pressman to have negative attitudes. You just have to be a real person who has grown up from that early society. What we need to do in reaching for what is best in us is actually to purge ourselves of the prejudices that we already have as Nigerians or as people who grew up within the culture that we grew up in. The first requirement is that the press acquire knowledge, which will inform their actions as they carry out their duties. That is the beginning of the change that we need. Next slide, please. It is only in the context of such an up-to-date knowledge base journalist may purge himself of his innate prejudice. And it is only then that the kinds of actions prescribed in the morning after, such as the 14 or 15 point agenda, change agenda, that Dr. Luatayo displayed at the beginning of this. It's only then that it becomes meaningful. We cannot do this cynically. You cannot preach the 14 or 15-point change agenda to people if you don't believe in it yourself. And you cannot and should not believe it just because Oluwatayo and Ifije say so, or because Dr. Lugbide has said so. You need to understand the basis for it. The information is available and has been made available. The enabling individually owned knowledge is the basis for the prescription of a change agenda, which can then be properly marketed from a point of conviction. The journalist's conviction is required to market it because it cannot be done effectively, cynically. The new way of understanding and dealing with the subject needs to be seen as not only reasonable, but necessary by the individual purveyors, i.e. every individual health journalist. In carrying out such an exercise of self-improvement, because that is what it is. This is not, we're not talking about the public good to begin with. We're talking about self-improvement. If we do not improve ourselves sufficiently to see the point in the agenda, then we cannot market it, as a way of life. We cannot market it as a new way of doing things. It cannot be a do as I say and not as I do, because that cynicism, that failure of individual conviction will shine through in the journalist's approach. If you are doing it just because it is the policy of this newspaper house to portray this matter in this way, it will show in the fine print of your write-up.
Thank you very much,
so
Dr.
you have to be acting from a place of conviction. I'm wrapping up now, please. Just give me a minute. Okay, so can we go to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Let me finish, please, with the slide. I'm just wrapping up. Can I have my next slide, which is probably the last one? Thank you for your attention. All of those things are the things that come together.
And the timer just went off. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just right on time. I'm going to have to stop this. Okay. There we go. Thank you very much, Dr. Lugbide, for a brilliant presentation covering quite a lot. What is suicide, self-harm, and I like the beats where you talked about. I think it was Dr. Luwatayo that mentioned about the role of the coroner, and that is what I'm going to be talking about from the social and the legal impact of responsible suicide reporting, if I can use that word, responsible suicide reporting, the social and legal impact. I've got 20 minutes. I have to time myself, so bear with me. So this is the moderator. Oh, can somebody time me, please? Can somebody time me for 20 minutes? I want to try and be. Okay, I will be.
I'm timing you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got my time on. Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to share on the screen with you now my presentation on responsible suicide reporting. Like I said, that irresponsibly, but however, this presentation is mainly to, bear with me one moment. I want to make this full screen from beginning. Okay, that's it. My name is Lade Olubemi, like I said at the beginning. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our colleagues from Kenya. So we have two representatives from Kenya here. There is Fred Bruti and also Charity Maturi. Fred is from the, bear with me one moment, let me just read where he's from. He's from the National Suicide Prevention. Bear with me one moment. Yeah, Fred is from the Royal Media Services in Kenya, and he's on the National Suicide Prevention Committee, which is fantastic. One of the things I'm going to be talking about later. So I am the convener of the Chief Executive of News Foundation Nigeria and also News Charity Incorporated UK. And I'm talking about today on the social impact of suicide reporting, the social and legal impact. And I'm asking the question, why do we need to talk about it? Some of these facts are facts that Dr. Lubele has given already, so you see me skipping through some of them very, very quickly. Suicide is one of the top 5 causes of death in adolescents. I know Dr. Lubele referred to the fact that there's a lot more suicidalization for people who are under 30. But it's scary to note that it's one of the top 5. Suicide has been identified not only as an individual phenomenon, it is not just about the person who has died. There's a fact that there's a social and environmental impact. And that is what we're looking at today in my presentation. What's the social impact of suicide? I know Dr. Lubele already talked about some of our cultural practices and also religious practices. The fact that in some religion, if a person has died by suicide, they will not accord them the right of burial, of normal burial. They probably will bury them outside. There's also an increasing evidence. The reason why we're talking about the social impact is because there's an increasing evidence that the internet and social media, and I use the word internet and social media because in the last few years, we've seen a big move from both just print and electronic. So electronic media has moved from you just watching TV or listening to news on your radio or your TV. It's gone on to you being able to watch them on your device. So it's still on the internet. It's a fact that there's a lot of evidence that the social media and the internet absolutely influences suicidal behavior. And that's why we need to talk about it. That's why we need to look at the social impact and also the legal impact. Suicide rates among teenagers there's been a drastic increase from 2007 to 2017, a drastic one. And it's because a lot of us are totally relying on social media. Look at us today, 2 different continents, we're holding this conference. Media is a risk factor. And the reason why we felt that it was really necessary for us to have these, chit chat, training, or whatever you want to call it, is because we as media practitioners, we can modify it. Some other factors may not be modified. We may not be able to modify them. So for example, if a person has suicidal ideation because they've had a broken relationship, you can't modify that. If it's because of financial issues or mental health issues, we as a community may not be able to modify it. But media, we can modify them. That's why we're talking about this today. And it's also about the fact that we want to limit the exposure to content which promotes contagion. And I know that in Martin's presentation, he's going to be talking about contagion. Contagion is another word for the spread of suicide-related thoughts and behaviors. And this is really important. Why are we talking about this today? We also want to refer to the guidelines. Martins will be talking about the WHO guidelines. And also, I know that the book has given 15 recommendations as well. We need to use what we call, the word we call responsible suicide reporting. And that is an acronym called RSR. There's a need for us to be responsible around how we report suicide. And also for us to adhere to global media reporting guidelines. So it's not just about the WHO guidelines, there's also the IPSO guideline, there's also the National Union of Journalists, not in Nigeria, there's a National Union of Journalists, which is a worldwide association for journalists. There are reporting guidelines. I'm going to give a bit of them about later. And it's also the need for us to make sure that when we're communicating, we're legal, what we're doing is legal, and also it's socially compliant as well. I was just going to say, next slide, please. Why responsible suicide reporting? We're asking that journalists use the responsible social reporting model. And what we're saying is that we want you to use a process. Part of the process are the 15 questions, the 15 recommendations in the book. Can we please mute our devices, please? Can we please, can those who are in admin please mute devices of those who are not speaking? The reason why we want journalists to be able to use this process is so that stories can be used and critical factors like this will be considered when you're writing the story. We want to reduce the level of stigma. The stigma out there about suicide is very high. Dr. Lubele had referred to the fact that it is still considered a criminal offense, and I'm going to be talking about that later. It's still considered a criminal offense for a person to want to self-inflict themselves that would lead to death. We want to reduce the copycat effect of suicide. We don't want people, you know, like, for example, in Nigeria at the moment, you know, that sniper is a very common, very common way of people taking their lives. We want to reduce the copycat effect. And that's why some of what you have in the recommendation, it encapsulates that. We want to reduce harmful speculations. And this is where the legal bits I'm going to be talking about later. And that is where the Coroner's Act comes in. Is the fact that you do not say a person has died by suicide except a coroner has deemed it as a self-inflicted injury and it is not a misadventure. We also want to highlight, we want press, we want the journalists to think about prevention strategies. Part of the WHO recommendation, and I'm hoping that those of you who are in the press today will be able to take this further and it's going to go into the press. Part of the recommendation is for us to have a national suicide prevention strategy. We do not have any in Nigeria at the moment. At the book launch, it was one key thing that I remember mentioning very highly, that there's a need for Nigeria to have a national suicide prevention strategy. I know we're a federation and most states have their individual responses to their medical issues, but there's a need to have a national one. And this is what we're asking as well. We want reports, media reporting of suicide to be in such a way where we want reporters to sync with what global suicide prevention communities. Emphasis should be on responsible suicide reporting. Education and training is an ongoing one. This is the first of several. Like I said at the beginning, we're compacting quite a lot in today. Is the use of guidelines and also consultation or collaboration with media companies. That is part of what we want to talk about. How do we monitor or regulate social impact of responsible social reporting? Legislative act. There's a need for us to update our legislative act. So at the moment, our Coroner's Act does not forbid anybody, that is in Nigeria, does not forbid anybody from reporting and calling something suicide. And I've got two good examples here. So in Australia and New Zealand, Section 70 and Section 71 of the Coroner's Act actually specifically says that you do not mention the method. It also talks about, don't talk about details about the place of death and also the description of the death as suicide. And it also talks about you not reporting that the death is suicide until it has been certified by the coroner. And that is one update would like for the legislative act or the legislative tools we have in Nigeria to also contain. We're also saying that regulatory bodies should be empowered. So it's the Nigerian Union of Journalists, the Health Writers Association. Do we have a journalist code of conduct about what happens if a person does not report well? We're talking about putting corrective actions in place. So we're not saying you ban them, you do this, you do that. No, corrective actions in place, that's what we're asking for. Empowering regulatory bodies. These are some of the social impact of responsible social reporting. And you can look at it on the flip side, you can look at it both ways. So one, the greater coverage of suicide story, the greater the chances of finding a copycat effect. So please, let's reduce the coverage. Man dies, man commits suicide. Let's change the narrative. Let's change the words that we use to describe suicide. When we use the word commit, literally we're saying it is a crime. And to be honest with you, where a person has a mental health issue and they've taken their lives because of the symptoms of those mental health issues, it is not a crime. So can we desist from using such words as committing suicide? But instead we say a person died by suicide because suicide is a type of death. Just like cancer is a type of death, diabetes is a type of death. A person dies by suicide. So can we desist from using the word man commits suicide? It is man dies by suicide and not committing suicide. Research shows that there is an increased coverage. Where you have an increased coverage, 84% are less likely to find copycat effect. And it's also the fact that age-specific suicide rate is the fact that among younger people, the risk is higher. These are some of the social impact of suicide. There's a ripple effect. So it's not just the man that has died. It's not just the man that witnessed when they died. It's not just the policeman that picked up the body or the people from the morgue that picked up the body. It's a fact that it's affected everyone else. And can I just ask, if you're here, can you just put on the chat box, Who else do you think may be affected? Just put it on the chat box. I've written some few things here. Families or survivors of those who have been bereaved or survivors of those who have died. Just put them on the chat box. Who else do you think may have been affected? And I put them here. Quick one: partners, siblings, sons and daughters, grandparents, extended family, ex-partners, colleagues at work, friends, clients, patients. And I'm glad that we have Charity here from Kenya, who may just have about a minute or two to talk later about their own experience. People who do not know the person that died, the police. These are some of the emotional reactions to suicide. Well, look, we're talking about social impact. It's a fact that people who may have witnessed it, they may experience shock, disbelief, there's anguish, there's anxiety, there's fear, there's depression, there's sadness, and there may be flashback as well. These are some of the physical reactions a person may experience. Is a tightness in chest, is breathlessness. It's a fact that they may start to experience insomnia, which is disturbed sleep, poor concentration, lack of energy. How suicide affects it is the trauma. One of the things that I talk about that is often not picked up is what we call vicarious trauma. So it's the fact that, yes, you did not witness it, but people have shared the video and you have watched the video that has been shared with you on WhatsApp. And you know, there's one thing that we're very quick to do in Nigeria at the moment, sharing things on WhatsApp, not just in Nigeria, I mean, generally everywhere. We're so quick to share. And we watch a very traumatic event where somebody has taken their life. It is a vicarious trauma that hangs on. So it's a trauma for the person who discovered the body, or person who heard how the person took their life. It is the imagination, is a fact that we're all imaginative human beings. And these are social impacts that we need to look at. Legal implication. Suicide is a crime in Nigeria. And I know that in 2019, my organization, alongside with SOPIN, some of you may know SOPIN. It is a research organization that was founded by LUTH, and that's Lagos University Teaching Hospital, to do researches around suicide. So my organization and SOPIN, we held the first Suicide Prevention National Conference. And one of the key things that we mentioned on the day we had the chair of the Committee on Health, Senator Oloriegbe, he was a main spokesperson on the day. And one of the things we talked about, and Dr. Lubile was there as well, thank you very much, Dr. Lubile, was decriminalizing suicide in Nigeria. Section 327 of the Criminal Code Act still makes it punishable by 1 year for a failed suicide attempt. So if a person who tried to kill themselves did not succeed, so what you're saying is that that person is liable to 1 year imprisonment. Currently enforced in several states, but I know that in Lagos State, which is a good thing, fantastic thing being done by Lagos State, it is not a crime in Lagos State, but a lot of the other states, it is still a crime. It's a legacy from the Lunacy Act 1964 or 1964 of UK. And then we have similar provisions in other African countries, and these are the similar provisions. The reason why I put this here is because I know we have other people from other countries here. So in Gambia, is Section 207 of the Criminal Act, Section 57 of the Ghanaian Criminal Offences, Section 226 of the Kenya Penal Code, and we have all of this here. Legal implication. I know that Senator Oloriegbe promised, and I know that a lot has been done. Absolutely much has been done from 2019 till the pandemic stepped in last year. So I know that it gone through the last stage. So the last stage that we have was that they done the last public reading of it and waiting for recommendation. And we're just waiting for the executive accent. So we have the Mental Health and Substance Misuse Bill. It is still a bill, it's not yet an act. But do you know that there's no provisions or address of decriminalizing suicide in that bill? It's one of the things that we're still pushing for. So my organization and several other organizations are working on this. We do not have enough statistics. Yes, SOPI is working around it, but our statistics are not detailed enough. So how are we able to measure? So we have 6.9% of the population, but how do we know? How active are the records from our coroner? Is every death recorded? Does every person that died, do they have a death certificate given to them? These are things that we need to talk about for us to be able to put a strategy in place. These are the examples of penalties that we have. So I know that Martin is going to be sharing something up. So in 2018, a carpenter who did not complete suicide, back 6 months for attempting suicide. In March 2018, this was a report by Daily Trust. And then an attempted suicide, do you know that Senator Melaye, for those of you who remembered Senator Melaye, he was actually granted 90 million bail in 2018 because he attempted suicide. That was what, so moving forward, what are the things we're asking for? We're asking that we would have a biannual training. Yes, Dr. Olupatayo and Dr. Lugbe mentioned it, and I'm saying it again, and we're saying it over and over again. We need to have suicide prevention trainings. There needs to be a debriefing for journalists who cover suicides, who write, whether health or crime, whichever part, whichever realm writes it. There needs to be a debriefing. Now, what does debriefing mean? We'll go into details about that later. There's a need to actively work with the National Association of Psychiatrists or Psychologists. We need to look at revamping the Coroner's Act and also having the National Suicide Prevention Strategy. That is really, really important. And that is me done.
Well done for keeping to time. That's really good, Ladi. Well done. So thank you for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to be going over now to, thank you for hailing me, Dr. Oluwatayo. For those who are just joining, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to ask for you, if you did not register, for those who are showing their screens, thank you for showing your videos. We'd love to see your faces. We can see Matthew Okachi, thank you. Juliana Ekong, thank you. If you did not register on Eventbrite, that means you don't have your email addresses. Can you please post on the chat box your email address, your name, and if you want to put the name of the media house that you represent, if you want to put that on, that'd be fantastic. I'm going to be going over now to Martins. Martins, where are you? I'm looking for your main device now. Which one should I spotlight, Martins? Am I spotlighting the correct one, Martins? Okay, I've seen you now. I've seen the correct one. Okay, fantastic. You'll be seeing Martins on 2 devices now. Fantastic. So, Martin, over to you. You're muted if you want to unmute yourself. If you have problems sharing, let me know so I can share.
Okay, so you can spotlight the clearer one. I think
fantastic. Okay, you're spotlighted on both. Let me know which one to take.
Okay, the clearer one.
I'll do both until you sort it out. So
Okay,
share your screen and I'll take the other one out.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm sure it's still morning in Nigeria. I'm very happy to be in the midst of journalists again. In fact, there's no better way to describe it. I'm sure the last time I was with us was probably in September last year, and that's almost a year ago now. So we'll just go straight to, I know Dr. Olugbile and Mrs. Lade have talked about, they've talked about suicide generally. They've even talked about the WHO guidelines. They spotlighted some areas and all that. But I'll probably just start from, you can start my slide. Okay, so I'll probably just jump to, there's something we call suicide contagion, which is just like COVID. You know, COVID, from one person, another person gets it, and so it spreads, and today the world is at freeze because of COVID. So same thing we have with suicide. The more suicide cases are reported, the more there's a tendency for other people to want to take their lives, especially those who are already depressed. You know, and health experts and journalists, they realized the more people report suicide cases, the more we are having the cases. So what comes to mind is, as journalists, do you really, you can go to the next slide. As journalists, do you really need to report suicide cases? Why do journalists really like reporting suicide cases? That is simple. Of course, we know the answer, because it's not how do I describe it now? It's very catchy. It's not a boring subject. Unlike, assuming you want to talk about malaria, you want to talk about nutrition, but when you see suicide, people tend to want to read about suicide. So journalists know this, and they prefer to write about suicide than probably any other health condition. So the more they write about it, the more people want to go into the art, especially those who are depressed. So because of this, a group of persons came together, health experts, psychiatrists, journalists, media experts, and I think internet experts as well. They all came together to produce guidelines. And the WHO also deemed it fit to take these guidelines, refine it, and then say, okay, if you must report on suicide, these are the things you must add to it. These are the key words to use. These are words not to be used. And by that way, we tend to try to reduce suicide cases. We know a lot of things lead to suicide, but sadly, media has become, you can go to the next slide. Sadly, media has become one of those reasons why suicide occur. That's because, of course, like Dr. Lubile said, we are part of the society. We also have our biases. These myths about suicide, we all know them. We grew up with them, you know. I remember a few years ago, at least before 2 years ago, I was always very happy reporting about suicide. And sometimes when I go back to my reports on suicide, I just feel, I mean, I've done more harm than good because of the way I reported suicide. That's not because I wanted to report them that way, but because, you know, we, like Dr. Lubile said, we grew up from the same culture, the same society where we see suicide as like a crime, where we see it as a taboo and all that. We never saw it like a health issue, you know. And when we are reporting suicide, you see this also reflects in our stories. So when somebody dies through taking his or her life, what should come to mind for journalists is it newsworthy? Should we report it? If you feel it's newsworthy enough for you to report, then you must follow certain guidelines. Ordinarily now, I'm better aware. Before, I would always want to report about suicide. But right now, with what I've learned about the WHO guidelines and the one we've domesticated, I'm sure as a journalist, I will, if out of 10, I'll probably just report one. And that one, I'll probably report it because of because the things I will add to it, the education it will bring to people and all that, not just because it's sensational, we want to report it. And then, so we have certain guidelines which the WHO put together. We have about 14 or 15, but in our book, we try to domesticate them. We try to bring it home to the way we reason, our culture and all that, and then see how we can come up with recommendations, which we've done. If you have a copy of the book, you probably see some of these recommendations. And some of these are also highlighted in the slides. You see, avoid languages that sensationalize suicide. If you must report suicide, make it a point to educate the people. the person died, the person committed suicide, like we always use that word, and is a word very common with journalists. As you see in most of our presentations today, we've been juggling, also trying to, we also mistakenly also use the word commit. Not because we want to use it, but because it will take time before we actually know the exact words to start using and all that. So if you must report about suicide, make it a point to educate the people. Make it a point to also say this is a medical condition. Put it out where people can get help. Just like malaria is a medical condition. They are also treatable. Maybe through counseling, through actual treatment. It's also actually treatable. So these things reflect in our stories. These are what the WHO guidelines are all about. It should reflect in our stories. We should, I'm sure we can't stop talking about this. We should stop using the suicide notes in our stories. We should stop using pictures in our stories, pictures of those who have died, how they died, describing the scenario and all that. We should all stop using it. You can go to the next slide. We should stop using languages that misinform people. We should be cautious while reporting about celebrities. One thing about that of celebrities is if a celebrity dies through suicide today, there's a possibility millions, hundreds of people, depending on the large fan base of the celebrity, there's a possibility of maybe 100 people will even lose their lives through suicide, exactly the same way the person did it. But people won't know about how this celebrity died if journalists don't talk about it. So first thing you ask yourself is it really newsworthy? We need to talk about this. If you must talk about it, you must de-emphasize on how the person died, what the person took. You must stop describing exactly how the person died. If you notice, anytime somebody jumps into Lagos Lagoon, two other people attempt the same thing. If you notice it, once we report about suicide, somebody jumps into the lagoon in Lagos, the next day or a day after, you see there will be another report of another person jumping into the same lagoon. And then it happens like that till it fizzles out. And then maybe after a year or two, we see the same thing happening again. That's because once we report it, those who are depressed readers will also read it and say, okay, this is how this person died, so I can do the same thing. And besides, once they do the same thing, they believe the media will also carry it. For some people, being in the media, either maybe when they die or when they're still alive, is like a big achievement. So if they can't be in the media when they're alive, maybe when they die, the media will probably carry it. So there are a list of the things we shouldn't do, we shouldn't say while reporting about suicide. And if you have a copy of our book, you see this list there. The recommendations are there, the WHO guidelines are there, they are simplified. We actually made this book very compact. It's a very small book because we just don't want to be talking about stories and all that. We want it to look like an academic book where you can just pick up in 3-4 hours, you read through everything and you're done. But we'll just go straight to practical examples. We have a couple of links. Maybe we'll just share like 2. So you can help us share one of the links. Maybe the one with the Punch newspaper. Let's start with the one with the Punch newspaper. Okay. If you look at this headline, let's start with the one with the Punch newspaper. Can we start with the one with the Punch newspaper? Okay.
Okay, I've just changed that.
Okay, it's fine. This story has.
Bear with me one moment. I don't know what happened. I'm just going to share.
Okay.
Okay. Punch should be up now. It's a bit delayed, so.
Okay, I can see it. This story has everything that shouldn't be in a story when reporting suicide. From the headline, the word commit means the 32-year-old man has committed a crime. And the problem with this is, since you know what you're doing is a crime, you think, okay, I need to finish this crime, otherwise I'll go to jail. And imagine somebody who is already depressed and then is about taking his life, and then remembers, if I don't complete this suicide, I'll probably spend 1 year in jail or 2 years, as the case may be. So what do you think that person will do? The person will make sure he completes the suicide. They just go to the body of the article. First paragraph. First paragraph has everything that it shouldn't have. Then the second paragraph, Abu was said to have drank bleach, even as sources stated that there was nothing to indicate that he was about to commit suicide. Media actually made sniper popular. The fact that people are taking snipers in Nigeria is because the media made it so. Not because people knew sniper can kill. Of course, there are other things that can kill. There are so many rat poison that can kill. But media actually made sniper popular. And that is what the media is also trying to do with bleach. If this kind of reports come up in 4 or 5 newspapers, be sure people will be taking bleach as a tool to taking their life. Then just go to the third paragraph. Okay, the third paragraph. Okay, fine. Okay, the third part. It was gathered that the victim poured the liquid. Now the person, the writer here is even describing how the person took the substance. First, you mentioned what the person took.
You've got 3 more minutes. You've got 3 more minutes, Martin.
Okay. Okay, now you're describing how the person took it. This is what actually fuels copycat suicide. There are hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of people that will read this article, and then within those numbers, there are some who are depressed. Those people will want to also do exactly what this person did, and then thinking, okay, once I do it, I will die, the media will carry it and all that. Then if you scroll down, you will see, while discussing about this story, the person had to now call the police. They call the security official and all that, just to get their reaction. Those are the things we always do as journalists. We used to do as journalists, which I believe maybe after now, everything will change. This story, the first person to talk to aside the families,
Okay, you've got 1 minute left.
okay, as health experts, psychiatric experts, and then you educate the people on why this shouldn't happen. That's just for Punch. There are a couple of them in other newspapers. You have for This Day, you have for the Cable. In fact, the Cable, I think there's a particular person in the Cable who likes reporting about suicide all the time. Those are some of the things. Now, if you are educated on, if you are informed on what to do and what not to do, you will know reporting of suicide should be one of the least things you should report. If you must report them, you follow those protocols. And we believe these protocols are listed in our book. If we domesticate them, as seen in the morning after, we'll be able to reduce suicide cases drastically in Nigeria. And the journalists can do this, and we believe henceforth stories will be coming out that has those responsible reporting that will also help people to who actually would like to take their life to not do it at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martins. Fantastic presentation. Thank you very much for that. And it's fantastic to be able to hear from a member of the Fourth Estate. Absolutely, absolutely great to hear the recommendations. We're going to be going into breakout rooms now. There are 46 of us on the platform. You're going to see a pop-up box that will come on, asking you to please accept the invitation to join a breakout room. I'm creating the breakout room now. This is the difficulty when you are both the host and also the one doing the technical bit. So Dr. Olugbile is going to be in breakout room. Bear with me one moment. Let me start this. Recreate. Yep. Okay. So Dr. Olugbile is going to be in breakout room 1. Martins will be in breakout room 3, and I will be in breakout room, Martins will be in breakout room 2, I'll be in breakout room 3. We have left this to be a computer assigning, so we're not the ones going to be assigning to the room, because we feel that if we tell you choose which of the workshop sessions you want to attend, anybody might just want to go into one place where their friend is. So it's a computer that is assigning you. This is an automatic assigning now. So what's going to happen is, so bear with me one moment now. Okay, assigning, and I would need to, okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. Okay, Dr. Olugbile is in number 1. Apologies for the slowness. I just like to go through the names and make sure that I get the coordinators for the various rooms in the right room. And it's a lot of work having to look through the names. Okay, so Dr. Femi is in, okay. Femi will be okay. And room 2 is Martins. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to put both Martins in. Okay, that's John. And then room 3. Bear with us one moment. It's just a bit of technicality. Want to make sure we have equal numbers in each of the rooms. You're going to see a sign on your screen asking you to accept, and you need to just please go into the rooms. Okay, here we go. So room 1, we've got room 1, we've got Dr. Olugbile in room 1. Move to 2. You've got Dr. Olugbile in 1. Room 2, we have Martins, and room 3, you have my my humble self in room 3. Okay, so it's going to be a discussion room. We want to hear from you, like we said at the beginning. We just didn't want a situation where everybody is just talking. We don't want, just be talking to you, want to hear from you. So room 3 is about looking at the social and the legal impact. There were some key things that I raised during my presentation. Room 2, we're looking at responsible social reporting. There's some key things that Martin's raised as well. We're going to be discussing that in that breakout room of the workshop. And then room 1 is Dr. Lubile. He's a psychiatrist, and you ask him all the questions. Is mental health a public health issue or a health issue? Go in there and discuss. So you're going to see something on your screen. Please click accept. And we'll all go in there. I think I've assigned everybody. Yes, I have. I've assigned everybody. Okay. Can I ask you, please just show your faces when you get into your rooms, please, to be nice. To be nice. Thank you for those who are showing their cameras. Hello, Joy. Hello, Matthew. Hello, Lucy. Hello, Sunday. Those who I'm seeing your faces, thank you so much. Hello, Aderayo. That's a beautiful name. Hello, Ngozi. Hello, Luwafunke. When you go into your rooms, hello, Rishadare. Fantastic. I think I'm doing well. Hello, Vivi. Hello, Sunday. Hello, Mike Oji. So when you go into your rooms, please show your faces. Let's get to this, see the faces. Okay, so here we go. Can we all just click on the screen and can you all see me? Breakout room 3. Can we just unmute our devices? Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Olayinka. Thank you, Shola. Thank you, Olivia, Ogechi, Matthew, Mike. Thank you. Mike, I know you asked for help. I think you were probably calling for my attention because I was probably in the other room. So fantastic. So what do you guys think of today so far? Mike Oji, you are in breakout room 3. You say you can't see your room. You're in breakout room 3. I can see you in breakout room 3. I can see you in breakout room 3, Martis. Okay, can we please unmute our devices? This is meant to be very interactive. It's meant to be interactive. So what do we think? The social and legal impact of responsible social reporting. What do we think? This is meant to be interactive. I'm not meant to be the only one talking to you. Can you all hear me? You can hear me. Olayinka.
We hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. So, you listen to my presentation. What do you think?
we should throw the flow to everybody.
Okay, hello everybody. Hello everybody.
Can I make it start?
Everybody's keeping quiet. Mr. Olaleko, we can only hear your background. We can't hear anything. This is meant to be interactive. It's meant to be interactive.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Femi, I can hear you. I can hear you very well, Femi.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hear you.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
can you
We
hear
hear
me?
you loud and clear.
Yes,
Please,
we
where
can
do I
hear.
belong, please? Where do I belong,
This
please?
is the social and legal impact.
Where is my room, please? I don't know my room. I've not got it.
This is the social and legal impact of responsible social reporting. That's what we're discussing. That's what this
hello,
room is.
can you hear me, madam? Please, can you hear me? Please, where is my room?
Responsible the social and legal impact of responsible reporting, suicide reporting.
Yeah, I'm not been connected to my room.
Okay,
Dr. Luatayo, you want to?
Oh, hello.
I'm not been connected.
Dr. Luatayo, do you want to start, please?
Yes, I would like to make a start. I mean, I think people are getting used to this.
I don't want to jump into the other rooms to make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah. So I think the idea of breakout room is to have a bit more close discussion within the group so people can express their view to a smaller audience. So that's the idea. I know it's a bit of a new concept to many of us. For me, I think it's really important for everybody to understand that the media need to report on suicide. In a country like Nigeria, where we don't have a lot of data from government sources, we don't have police records on who is attempting or completing suicide, we don't have enough research, so we need the media to tell us about these stories. So nobody is saying people shouldn't report on suicide. It's about reporting on suicide in a responsible way. Suicide is a
suffers from negative perception. Suffers from negative perception, and the entirety of the subject of mental health suffers from negative public perception and the strong issue surrounding stigma. So I can't remember what year it was. It must have been like 2007 or something. We organized a forum last week where we had health writers for a day, going through a series of talks, and we went through the broad spectrum of common mental health disorders, and we tackled frontally the
Dr. Lubule, I could see you are speaking, but we can't hear you, sir.
But my mic is on. Can anybody hear me? Is it one person?
All right,
nobody can hear at all.
We can hear you now. We can hear you.
We can hear you, sir. Oh.
Go ahead, sir.
Are you just hearing me now, or did you hear the things that I've said before?
Me, I heard you all from the beginning till now.
So maybe there was one person who had a problem with okay, so I'm not going to start all over. Anyway, I'm just using this to illustrate where we are coming from. That in 2006 or 2007, thereabouts, we had a forum for health reporters, such as the health journalists, and the people there, and the focus was on getting stigma out of their reporting of mental health conditions. Journalists there were very eager to prove to us that they had no problem, that they didn't have any negative attitudes or perceptions.
Were in the report. But I think, like Gideon said, there's a bit of a challenge. We are not the people who actually push out the stories. We report, we have editors, we have publishers who eventually push out the story. And I think we should start with them. This training shouldn't end with us, the report. I think there should be a way to incorporate editors, publishers. Like Olade mentioned the NUJ. If there's a way there could be a collaboration between the foundation or organizers of this training and NUJ, because at that point you have all media practitioners, regardless of the level, whether reporters, editors, or publishers, and even Guild of Editors, where we also have more of the publishers, to also go through this kind of training, so that when we write and follow those guidelines at their own end, they don't have to remove them and then put the usual commit suicide and all that.
Sorry, can I just ask for somebody to please take notes? Can somebody please take notes so that you can feed back to us? I do not necessarily be the coordinator. They'll feed back to us. Thank you.
Okay, so someone is taking notes. Gemma, you want to help us?
Take notes, Lucy baby. Take notes.
Lucy has always been the secretary, so she will take notes.
So Martin,
Okay.
my own question is this.
Thank you.
I want to ask. So
Lucy is already taking notes.
I want to ask, what happened to the 5 W's and H where we have talked about
the system in Lagos is still an exercise.
Can I please ask, sorry, Dr. Lubule, can I please ask somebody should please take notes that will feedback? It's not going to be the moderator or the coordinator that will feedback. So it will be somebody from the audience from this workshop. Thank you.
Maybe it's possible that Chairman could volunteer to do that. It's just bullet points from what we're discussing. So I'm saying, I've said two things, that I've explained the reason why journalists are even more, are very to building a critical mass or to push positive change. And even the effort to get policymakers and people in government to do things has to be after.
They may want to
Yes,
cover up a crime.
Dr. Oluwat.
Finding this thing difficult. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, in a way, they are trying to cover up for a crime. They will portray it as if it is a suicide. What about that?
That's exactly the point I'm making, that actually we don't know. So to say it is suicide when we don't actually know. That's why we shouldn't call it suicide, because we don't.
Hello?
But there are some
please
that
go
can eyewitness.
Hello, yeah.
Can I ask for us to just put our questions on the chat box, just in case, because I know there's breaking transmission. So if you type them out.
Okay. This isn't a question, actually.
That's okay then, go ahead.
Can I go on?
Yes, please.
Yes, it's like a response to the 4 W's and H, or the journalistic formula: who, what, where, when, how. Just like Dr. Oluwatayo has said, even as a journalist, whatever information that is being
sorry, before you go on, can somebody please take note who will feed back to us when we come back into the main room? Can we get a volunteer that will take note? It won't be either myself or Dr. Oluwatayo that will succinctly just summarize what we're discussing here. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Charles.
Yeah, yes. What I was just trying to explain is that, just like Dr. Oluwatayo said, it actually depends on the source of the information. Who is giving that information? If somebody actually dies by suicide, who confirmed or who confirms that it is by suicide? It is that information, because as a journalist, you can't generate any information. You use information from a source, and that source must have some level of credibility. For instance, if it is from the police, okay, you can use that. If it is from maybe the hospital, you can use it. So I think the information that is used will depend on the source, and that will determine the credibility. So saying somebody died by suicide is not really a creation of the media. It is the source that determines how useful or how credible that information is. Usually what we do is that before we go to press, we normally confirm. Even if we do, I've seen reports that say suspected suicide, but sometimes that's not good enough, because the editor will say, you need to confirm. Can you call the family? If it is a prominent person, they will say, look, get in touch with your family. Has the family issued a statement? Now, if the family some element of doubt, because you cannot confirm without a genuine, getting that information from a genuine source. So
Mr. Charles, can I just respond?
Of whether, yes. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Because the reason why I thought it's just best to respond is because what you've said is an absolutely spot on and fantastic observation. At the moment, our Coroner's Act is not very, what's the word? It's not very buoyant, as in how you confirm the type of death. We have questions around how our data is kept. The only person from the legal point of view that should confirm the type of death is a coroner. Because this is what you call misadventure. Because yes, a person may have wanted to self-inflict themselves an injury that they wanted to lead to death, but it wasn't suicide. It is what you call death by misadventure. So it is actually usually in situations where you have all the legal ramifications in place. It should actually be the coroner that would determine whether it was a misadventure or it was an intention to end their life. At the moment, we're having to rely on a lot of word of mouth. How did they die? So you call the family, they tell you, oh, he drank suicide, he drank sniper, or he hung himself. But you know, hanging could have been a misadventure. It may not have been suicide.
Yes, so that is why I agree.
One of the recommendations that I had written in my presentation is the need for us to make sure that we're escalating to all of the various governmental bodies. We need to have a national suicide prevention strategy. And part of what that would entail is the need for us to make sure that the Coroner's Act and the role of the coroner is made a lot more active in confirming types of deaths. So this is over to you, journalists in the House, to take this further.
I agree.
Fantastic. With you. We have very few minutes. I'm going to jump into another room because I've coordinated all the other rooms. But good observation, Mr. Charles. Over to you, Dr. Oluwatayo.
I think it would be nice to hear from other people. I think it would be nice to hear from other people. Please, let's participate. Please tell us what you think.
Hello, good morning. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Ngozi. Yes, Ngozi, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Please, I have a contribution to make. Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Before now, and in the rural areas, people are fond of committing suicide. And I believe
we
most
use the word commit suicide and we say die by suicide. Let's start from here. Die by suicide.
Sorry. Most people die by suicide. And these people in question, I believe they don't have access to news for the past maybe 1 year or two. But still people die on that. Now people believe that some people die, maybe suicide is in their blood.
Operating an absurd system, a wife can kill her husband, start crying, and then carry him to some funny doctor somewhere, get a death certificate, and then go and beg that person who is the victim, and nobody is any the wiser.
So we have 60 seconds to round up. We're going back into the main session.
Ending shortly, unfortunately. But so that's just, regarding specifically the issue of suicide. Of course, everybody is a victim, and the stipulations concerning when the
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for, I don't know how that session went for you. I think it was fantastic. I was able to go around the various rooms and get to hear the various perspectives from the 3 different rooms that we had. Bear with me one moment as we're all just returning. Not everybody, I think it gave a 60 seconds countdown, and I think everybody just clicked and everybody just came back, but some people are still joining. So yeah, waiting for people to join. Still waiting, people are joining. Bear with us as we wait for people to join. Okay, how did we find that session? How did we find the session? I'm going to go round to room 1. Room 1, we had Dr. Luke Wile, and this is about mental health and suicide reporting, whether it's a public health issue or a health issue. And do we have somebody from the room who is going to give us a feedback? Who's giving us a feedback from room 1?
We had an incomplete discussion, but Chairman, I think
Chairman,
I believe Chairman will be able to give a few bullet
points
about our incomplete discussion.
Yes, we had an incomplete discussion, but from what we've discussed so far,
yeah, 22 minutes.
Yes, from what we discussed so far, we talked about the role of journalists in bringing the issue of suicide to limelight and why suicide should not be treated as a crime, but as a health condition. And again, we talk about the issue of corona, because during your presentation slide, you raised questions about the corona issue. And Dr. Ligwile made us understand that there are the gaps still remain. There are still gaps in terms of implementation of the corona here, and there is only Lagos State that is in that moment implementing it. Even without their implementation in the state, there are still gaps, because many deaths, go on unreported or documented. And before you now, convince that all of us are still victims, because before you say somebody commits attempted suicide, you should be able to, do an autopsy to find out what exactly killed the person. But in this part of the world, no autopsy is done on most of the deaths, and people bury their own just like that. So we couldn't complete our discussion before we're asked to come back to it. But that's just the summary of what we discussed there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's from room 1. Thank you very much. We're going to go to room 2 now. Room 2, we had Martins, and that's the journalist. That's supposed to be a journalist hotspot. So who is speaking back from room 2? Please put your camera on. Let's see your face, and I need to spotlight you. Can you please put your camera on? Who is speaking back from room 2?
Okay, Lucy will do that.
Okay, Lucy, fantastic. Okay, over to you, Lucy.
Okay, I think majorly we were discussing about responsible reporting of suicide. Many questions were raised, especially on the part of where we have to reflect the 5 Ws and H of news reporting. We were told to follow strictly the WHO guidelines, but in those guidelines will actually be about de-emphasizing the reportage of suicide. And if we're going to follow that, then we won't be talking about the where, the who, the how of a story. Also, somebody raised the issue of how do we now get data? How do we get statistics if we're de-emphasizing the reportage of suicide? If we're not going to use the word suicide, then it means it's better not to report at all, because if you're not putting all these elements, the story is as good as dead. Anyway, we actually concluded that reporters, especially in this training, might begin from now to reflect these guidelines, like using the word died by suicide and not committed suicide. But we are not the final gatekeepers. We have editors, we have publishers, we have media owners who finally push out the story. If there's a way this conversation can continue with them, so that we don't get to report stories and at their end, they kind of remove some of all these followed guidelines and still push out the don'ts in the reportage of suicide. So we didn't actually conclude, but at least we want this conversation to continue, and also the organizers should find a way to also meet with news editors, the Guild of Editors, the NUJ to continue this conversation so that we can have a uniform way of reporting suicide. Thank you.
Absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for that, Lucy. Very good feedback. The whole essence of having this training is to start the conversation. One of the key things that all the presenters so far has done is the fact that we mentioned that training is ongoing. We're not just talking about this as a one-off training. And you've raised a particularly key important message. It is the media owners, those who want to sell. One of the key things we know is that it's bad news that sells. If you write good news as a headline, nobody wants to buy, but put a bad news, everybody wants to pick it up. So there's a need for us to actually make sure that the key drivers and the decision makers are involved. Fantastic feedback from room 2. We're going over to room 3 now. So room 3 was supposed to be reflecting on my presentation, which is a social impact and the legal impact of responsible social reporting. Part of what I presented in my report is about the emotional, the trauma, the social impact, the legal bit, the legal implication of responsible reporting. Part of it, Lucy has mentioned. So who's going to give us a feedback from room 3? Room 3, who's giving us a feedback so I can spotlight you?
I can say something about that. If there's nobody to do it, I was in room 3.
Okay, over to you.
Yeah, I think we had a bit of technical problem in room 3. We didn't get many contribution, but we did get a couple of really good contribution. And it is very similar to what Lucy has just said. I mean, clearly journalists have some training they've had and what they should be reporting on, i.e. when, who, where, how. You have to be specific. And now we're coming and saying, well, don't do all that. Follow the WHO guideline, follow morning after guideline. How does that work? So I think it was very interesting to talk about that within the group. There was no real conclusion in the group, but I think it opened up a lot of conversation in terms of us to think more about how we can help our colleagues in the media industry. And I think it is right because the editors apparently, I mean, I don't work in the profession, they have the final say about what gets published. So if you as a reporter, you go and bring a news story and then you didn't put all the specifics, and the editor will look at you and say, do you know what you're doing right there? So I think the training has to go higher up along the chain. The editors, the publishers. I'll give you an example. In the UK, the IPSO, Independent Press Standard Organization is called, is actually owned by the publishing houses. So they got together and developed press standards, and they have guides on how to report on suicide, because members of the public can complain to them if they did the reports wrongly, and the people can get fined. In fact, they can fine up to £1 million if you're found guilty. So they train each other, they have in-house training, and they check on it, they supervise their reports. So they have a group that check on what the people are publishing. So they are self-regulating, you know, and you don't want the government to regulate press. We want press freedom, but the press has to self-regulate to be able to manage this. So I think it's really important to get to the editors and to the publishers, because they control this. But I think the point made at the beginning by Dr. Olubile is really important. If we don't believe in something, we cannot implement that thing. To start with, if the journalists believe that actually this is fantastic, this makes sense, because the more you report on these things, the more many people are actually attempting suicide, and many are actually ending up killing themselves. So we know copycat suicide is happening. We know people are following these things. So what do we do? Do we want people to be actually killing themselves because of the report that we're producing? I'm sure we cannot ask ourselves these questions. So if we believe that is a good cause, and then we can pass it up to our bosses, and then we can push the training. We can talk to them, we can train them, we can do all these things, but we know that this is a dangerous thing. If it's not handled properly, many innocent people are dying.
Thank you very much, Femi. Thank you very much for that summary. I think one key thing that Mr. Charles had said, which was good, because I was popping in and out. It was supposed to be a room, I was supposed to be coordinating, but I had to be popping in and out to check the other rooms. One of the key things he said is about how do we get data? there's the issue about how do we confirm the type of death. Yes, in my presentation, I talked about the Coroner's Act, the need to have that a lot more involving. So Mr. Charles, Shola Charles, had talked about the fact that at the moment, the editor will say, go and confirm with the family. So you call the family and the family is telling you, oh, this person died by suicide. But do we know there's what we call a misadventure? So the Coroner's Act in UK, for example, recognizes the fact that a person can die by misadventure. So if a person has a mental health issue, that part of the symptom is suicidal ideation. That means it's just like when you have diabetes, there's symptoms to diabetes. So also when a person has mental health issues, there are symptoms to those mental health issues. So if a person has suicidal ideation as part of their symptom and they kill themselves while exhibiting that symptom, is it suicide? Was it intended? Because in law, example, one of the things in which you define murder is murder aforethought. Did the person plan to kill themselves, or was it just because they were having suicidal ideation because they had mental illness? A big debate for us to go into, but like we said, we cannot capture everything today. We're trying to rush through everything very quickly. We have representatives, like I said at the beginning, of the observers from Kenya. There's a lot of work that has been done. So there's Charity Maturi, and I think Fred, I don't know if Fred is still around, Charity Maturi. Fred is on the Committee for the National Suicide Prevention Committee from Kenya. Just 1 minute, Charity, for you to introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing with the press in Kenya. Part of what we intend to do is actually to go to Kenya as well and replicate this training. I've already intimated my colleagues about this. Okay, Charity, 1 minute, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I am Charity. I have lived experience with suicidal ideation and a caregiver for 26 years actually, and a caregiver to a family member with the same challenge. I do not see, suicide articles in my country talking about where we can get help from the stories. I have not seen that in your stories as well. We have a family that is very affected. Like yesterday, someone sent me photos of blood splatter from a gun that her uncle had used, and the sight of that blood and brain matter, she says, affects them. The news affects them more than the death itself, which is very unfortunate. So I have served in the National Task Force on Mental Health as a representative for patients and caregivers, because in Kenya, we've been doing a very concerted campaign to have the voices of lived experience in policy. And so Fred Beuchi is here. I requested him to come from the media, Royal Media, because actually the National Suicide Prevention Committee were not able to come, but I also serve with them in the decriminalization committee. And we had done a media training with Fred, a similar one with 55 journalists in mental health training. And we also have a decriminalization committee with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the Kenya Psychiatric Association, where we are decriminalizing through a petition to the court in order to repeal a section of the penal code. And
thank you very much.
Okay, allow me just to add that I would really encourage you to include the persons with lived experience in this strategy planning. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, which is very key. One of the key things you brought out, two key things that, yes, you very rightly mentioned. One of the recommendations from WHO is that whenever you write an article on suicide, always make sure that details of where people can get help is there. So we are stopping, and we have a lot of organizations on ground in Nigeria who are doing fantastic work. So please do not just write articles and just say what has happened. It's also referring that if a person may have been affected by this story, -- details is where they can contact. Thank you very much for that. We're going to go over to a panel session now. And on the panel session, we have on our panel session, we have 4 people or 3 people. We've got Ms. Chioma, who is on the panel. Ms. Chioma, I hope your camera is on. Ms. Chioma, there you go. I'm going to spotlight you. We have Mr. Shola Ogundipe. Mr. Shola Ogundipe, where are you? Is your camera on? Your camera has to be on for me to spotlight you. If you just please unmute yourself. Is that Mr. Shola Charles that is Ogundipe as well?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. You should have just put
Me.
Charles there. Okay, so I'm just going to add you on. Thank you. Fantastic. And then we have Mr. Sam Eferaro. Apologies if I did not pronounce your name well. Mr. Sam, where are you? Unmute your device, Mr. Sam. Please unmute yourself. And I will spotlight.
Ferraro. Thank you.
Ferraro. Okay, I'm just going to add your name before I spotlight you. I'm going to put your name there, Sam. Okay, so that because it's shown as Infinix. It's shown as Infinix. Okay. Sam Ferraro. Ferraro. Okay. I hope the spelling is right, but it is not. Right, so okay, please just pardon me. Let's go quickly because we have very few minutes to go. Okay, very interesting discussion today. The reason why we put the four of you on the panel is because you represent different angles, absolutely different angles of reporting that we're talking about today. Dr. Ridley already highlighted at the beginning of this conference the importance of the fourth realm of the estate. In my presentation, I talked about the fact that social media, the internet is influencing a lot of behaviors, not just mental health, it's influencing our buying habit, it's influencing our social habit, it's influencing our physical health, it's influencing virtually everything. Look at us, dotted in 4 different continents at the moment, countries all over the world, Kenya, America, London, Nottingham, Peterborough, and where else? And Lagos, and perhaps some people are logging on from different states in Nigeria. It's influencing a lot of things. So what are the things that you think we can do to change the narrative? And I'm going to pose that first question to you, Mr. Sam, because I hear that you're a veteran. You're a veteran in this field. So suicide prevention, Mr. Sam, how can we, as members, I'm also a member of the Fourth Estate, to be honest. Before coming over here, I worked in Minaj Broadcast International and also the Guardian newspapers, and that's the flagship. You know, we call ourselves the flagship, the Guardian newspapers, Nigeria. So, Mr. Sam, how can we change the narratives from all of the things we've talked about today? The question is over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. First, I think we are on the right path now, because we need a lot of information. We need to actually
Hello.
Go on, you've got the floor. Go on, sir.
Hello.
We can hear you. We can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, Sam stopped talking.
Oh, I think it's dropped off. Okay, if you can jump and answer the question, jump into it, Mr. Ogundipe. Is this Charles or Ogundipe? I want to make sure I'm calling your name properly.
Well, they are either one. They're all my names.
Okay.
They're all my names.
Okay, so over to you, Mr. Ogundipe.
Okay, yes. Like Sam was rightly saying, I believe too we're on the right track, because having this forum, I mean, is a very good start. And from the book that was launched, actually, because we've been able to realize that from what we have been doing, we can do better. You know, we've identified some of the gaps, and we've also identified some of the ways of bridging these gaps. I just want to point out that the media needs to be looked at, more in a broader sense than just the health reporters, because it isn't only health reporters who report on suicide. Somebody did mention it earlier. Yes, we have the crime reporters, but we also have a group of journalists who are not in any specialized field. For instance, the state correspondents, they cover everything. They are the eyes and ears of the newspaper over there. And you find that so many of these stories that found wanting. Many of them originate from such sources. And then again, if we go to the news desk itself, go to the sub desk, the production desk, because even if as a reporter, well, I'm an editor, I'm the health editor, I work on my pages, I edit it, and I do the finished product. And some of us also have that privilege, but it's not everybody. You still have the final gatekeeper, who your story has to go through, who might just one way or the other, put in some of all these undesirable things. So it's also a good way to reach out to such people. And again, the media owners,
Thank you very much for
also need to be brought into this picture.
Absolutely, well spot on. Very much. It's about escalating it further, how we can change the narrative. Next question, Ms. Chioma, which is a very key one. So we've talked about not using the word homicide. We've heard about it. So what other words can we use to describe in this? Ms. Chioma?
I was about posing to, that was a question I was posing to Dr. Olubile when he spoke the first time. Somehow he was also using commit, even in his presentation. So some of us noticed it. I wanted to ask, you're still using the word commit, but there was no time to ask the question then. But for me, instead of using commit, it's either I said attempted suicide,
No, this is where people actually died by suicide, because when a person died by suicide, there are other words. We want to hear from you, journalists. We don't want Dr. Olubile to be the one saying this. Okay. So if you're in the house, if you have suggestions about words that can be used, we want it to come from you. Let us own the words. What other words can we use instead of using the word commit?
You see, I want to point out something. On headlines, most times you look for a sharper word, you look for a shorter word. When you say people die by suicide, or maybe you say so person died by suicide. Sometimes we look at some headlines are, once it's more than 10 words, the story will not be very sharp. So most times, when you now use the word commit suicide, people see it as, very sharp. It's something that people will like to identify with. But for me,
what alternative can we use? Yes, what alternative?
The alternative, I am thinking of, we can say attempted suicide.
No, if a person died by suicide, if they died.
Okay, if the person died by suicide.
An attempt is if it was not completed. Okay. So what works? I think I've kind of answered the question myself. We use the word died by suicide. A person died by suicide. Thank you very much. We can see or just written now here that let us agree to use the word died by suicide instead of using the word commit suicide, because we're trying to change the narrative that suicide is not a crime. We want to reduce the stigma around suicide. Fantastic. I hope that answers it. Can we all just agree to that? Okay. The other question that I would like to ask, unfortunately, Mr. Sam is not here. So there was a key recommendation from the book, which said, okay, is that Mr. Eferano?
Yes, Eferano.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, then let me add you to the spotlight. Okay, this question to you now. So how do we ensure editors use the guidelines when publishing suicide articles? So I know that Mr. Ogunjikpe already mentioned a bit about that. How do we ensure that editors pass this on? Because I know that it's not all health writers that are here. And the second question to be added to that is, so at the moment, it is crime reporters that majorly report on suicide. What's your view about the recommendation from the book?
Sorry, ma'am.
That it is health reporters.
Please, before he answers the question, please let us, we have some of our crime reporters that are also on the platform, on the webinar with us. We have about 5 of them from different media houses. I don't know.
Fantastic.
Yes, we can mention their names. We have Evelyn Usman from Vanguard Crime Desk. We have Mary from FRCN Crime Desk. We also have Leko. We have Mary Chioma from The Sun. We have Leko from Tribune. also have one other person.
Can we all please mute our devices? If we're not speaking, can we kindly mute our devices, please? Thank you.
So we ask them to join us. We ask them to
Fantastic.
join
That's a
us.
good one.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So yeah, thank you for mentioning them, and we do appreciate. And one of the, if you remember my presentation, one of the things I said there is about collaborative work. This cannot just be done by one person, by one organization. It's got to be collaborative. So over to you, Mr. Ferraro. Can we please mute our devices where we're not talking? It would be very helpful. Mr. Ferraro, so who do you think is best to report? Is it the health reporters or crime reporters? The recommendation from the book is that it should be health reporters. Over to you.
If you can hear me, I think those of us that are here can actually take the message to the editors and the news, various newsrooms. We did that during the, we did that. We had, when we really had HIV/AIDS, and the WHO came out with the guideline. So sorry. So sorry.
Okay, do we still have Mr. Ferrano on?
Yeah.
Okay, bad network, one of those. Unfortunately, one of the things we need to live with. Mr. Ogudikbe, Mr. Ogudikbe, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bina, do you want to say anything about that? Health or crime? Or does any of the crime reporters want to say anything? If you just let me know. I would like to.
Yes, Evelyn Usman speaking.
Okay, Evelyn, over to you.
Yes, the assistant crime editor for Vanguard, and I report crime. I would like.
Can we see your screen? Can we see your screen, please?
I've been trying to, but I really don't know what happened.
Go ahead. Go on talking, please. That's all right. Go on, Evelyn. You've been muted, or you've muted yourself. If you just please go ahead.
I said I would like to appreciate this training. It's really mind-boggling and an eye-opener at the same time, because it has opened our eyes, because crime reporters, we report this crime of suicide, and I want to say that I am liable of even using it. I've reported it several times. But for us to cop this, it goes beyond just the crime reporters themselves. I think it should be extended to publishers of media houses, because if a crime or suicide happens and Punch carries it, for instance, in Vanguard, we know the competitive nature of the job we do. If Punch carries it and it is not in Guardian, I am only privileged to this training. What about others that are not privileged? It will be a setback on my part, and I'm even be queried in my office. So I think I told the line of Mr. Shola Odudbe that this training should be taken beyond this, beyond where it is now. It should be a thing that we should champion. The editors should be involved.
Thank you very much. Absolutely captured. And it's good to hear from a crime reporter or somebody who were not a reporter. I think you said the assistant editor, but it's good to hear from the beat. Absolutely. Beat. And we're hoping that everyone on board here, we're going to go back to the individual media houses and escalate this up to the various management. Talk about what the theme, the content, and the context of this training was about, and the need for us to take it further. We're more than happy to do the same, replicate the same within the Crime Reporters Association, if you have any. And I know that Charity has put up an important theme across here, because one of the key questions that was asked, one of the quick questions that we asked was that, do we actually have a global, when I say global, an African association of reporters where we can escalate from the top and de-escalate down? And that is what appears to be a common thing across the board. Another question, I'm just looking at some of the questions on the chat box. I want to make sure, because we have very few time left, we actually gone 14 minutes. We've gone 14 minutes over, but I know, just like I said at the beginning, that we have a lot to pack in. We didn't start on time anyway. So bear with me one moment. I'm just reading through some of the, I know somebody asked a question here earlier. Which does not affect everyone. Bear with me. I'm just trying to be a good coordinator and a moderator. Is there's any question by any member of the admin? If you could just help me read it out. Somebody's asked here, Risika Ramoni asked here that is it every time we need to speak with the psychiatrist? Please mute your device. Can you please mute your device, please? Thank you. Somebody said, oh, they need a clarification on the jail term for anyone who attempts suicide. The clarification is very straightforward. Section 327 of the Crime Order Act says it's 1 year. But I know that in Lagos, it is not a crime because we're a federation. Nigeria is a federation. And so that law is suspended. When you say suspended in Lagos context, however,
sorry, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
I'm aware of organizations. I'm aware of organizations that have stepped in. I'm aware of the fantastic work that Dr. Gosh, I need to remember her name. She was one of the speakers at our conference in 2019. One of the work that the charity organization has done in advocating for those who have attempted suicide, and they have defended them or represented them in the court or at the various police stations. I'm just going to look through now, and we'll have to wrap up. We'll definitely have to wrap up. Police image makers also need, absolutely, we need to get across. If you have any comments, please post them in the chat box. We're going to put all of this together. Police, we need to train the police as well. Absolutely important, the image makers especially. That's from Olalekan Olambulo. Yinka Shokubi saying here that in his own opinion, a major way to go forward is for all of us to take WHO guidelines back to the mainstream media. Absolutely fantastic suggestion. There's an increase in mental health issues, very right. Of course, there is destigmatizing. One of the ways in which we can help this is by using the power of the fourth realm, and that's the power that journalists have. On that note, we're going to have to round up. I'm so sure we have so much. We're going to have to continue this conversation, and that's why if you've not put your email addresses on the chat box, please put it there if you did not register on Eventbrite, because we're going to be following this up. The presentations will be emailed to you as well. We'll email the presentations to you. This event is being recorded, and when we do, we'll send a link of where it is recorded. We're going to send that to you as well, so you can go back and refresh. And we're going to be sending a copy of our feedback form. So we have a feedback form that we're going to send to everybody. We send a copy of the feedback form. Please fill the feedback form. We'd like to get feedback from everybody to know what went right today, what went wrong, what could have gone better, and how can we move this forward. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Lucy, who is the secretary of the Health Writers Association, to give a vote of thanks. Am I okay, Martins? Dr. Oluwatsayo has stepped back. He's working. He's had to go into consultation today. And my name is Lade Olubemi. I'm a lawyer. I am a mental health advocate. I am an author. I've written a book on breaking the barriers of mental health, early intervention into mental health issues, and I'm a public speaker as well. And of course, where is Martins? I'm looking for Martins. I need to spotlight you, Martins. Where are you? Where are you? I just want to spotlight everybody. Where's Chioma? Chioma is not on the screen. Want to spotlight everybody. So I just want to put you on the spotlight so that we can all take a bow. Dr. Lubile. Dr. Lubile, where are you? I can see Dr. Lubile. Fantastic. Martins, where are you? I hope you haven't stepped out. Don't leave only me and Chioma here. Where's Martins? Okay, there you are, Martins. I can see you now. Fantastic. I can see you. Okay. So, Lucy, okay. Where are you, Lucy? Where are you? Lucy, I
okay.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, fantastic. So on that note, if you have any other comments, please put them in the chat where we have a record of all the chats. We have all the record there so we can refer to them. Like I said to you, this training has been brought to you by the Health Writers Association of Nigeria, and Lucy is the Secretary General, if I can use that word for her. She'll be giving the vote of thanks. represented by Choma as well. And I'm Lade from News Foundation Nigeria and News Charity Incorporated Organization UK. And there's Maxis and Dr. Oluwata is happy to step out. They're both authors of the writers of both authors to the book The Morning After, and it is on the basis of the book that we're doing this training. And of course, there's Mr. Sam Eferaro. Thank you for correcting me. Mr. Sam, who is on the panel. Thank you very much, Dr. Lubile. Fantastic presentation from you earlier. Thank you very much, Mr. Gudikbe. I know that we're struggling with a lot of network issues. Mr. Sam we struggle with network issues. One of the things we have to live in a new normal. And over to you, Lucy.
Okay, thank you so much, Lade. I think you have actually done most of the vote of thanks. Thanks to everybody who has made out time and even stayed this long. It was really an impressive, a laudable, and a successful training that we've heard. It's been established that the media is critical and crucial in actually disseminating information to change the narrative so that we can save more lives rather than take more lives. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we hope the conversation will continue for a better job by the journalists. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Lucy. Chioma, one last word from you. And where is Martin? Martin, you keep leaving. Who removes you from spotlight? You're supposed to be on the spotlight. Martin, any word from you? I've just spotlighted you, Martin. Martin, any last word? Dr. Lubile, any last word?
Well, just to say that this has been
If there's none on that
good initiative and we should continue. The language barriers we should push to surmount, but more importantly, even the thinking barriers. The language thing, we may not achieve full mileage with it because we may not have across the board consensus. I mean, because if we purge the words of themselves of pejorative meaning, we can use them. I mean, commit suicide is common usage. Yes, it would be nice to say died by suicide, but more importantly, it would be nice to think died by suicide, as in died of diabetes or some such thing. So it is the thinking change that we are pushing for. The language change will help, but the thinking and the attitude are the things that we are seeking to change. And I think this is a good first step. And it needs to escalate. It needs to spread across, and capture other people, including the police and the hierarchy of the press.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lubile. Thank you so much. One last one from you, Martins, the co-author of the book Morning After. You're all going to be getting a copy of the book and also a conference bag, a fantastic conference bag. Ms. Choma, don't let me say all. I need to rephrase that. Not everybody. Those who have registered with Ms. Choma, and Ms. Choma knows them. So they'll be getting copies of the book. Please don't forget to report this when you go back, the train today. And don't forget to report it in the various media, various platforms. I think it's fantastic. We need to take this further. Please escalate this to your various editors that we want to train them as well, but want to have a chit chat with them as well. Now over to you, Martins. Martins, over to you. Okay. I think on that note, it's okay to say thank you, everybody. And Ms. Choma, any last word?
Yeah. Yes, I want to say thank you to everyone that participated in the last minute. I want to say we are grateful for your attention, and we pray that you use what you have learned today very well in your reportage of suicide. I also want to encourage you also write more to let our leaders, our government to understand that we should begin to look at suicide from other angles. But one last thing to our members, to our colleagues, please send your emails, correct your emails, because some emails bounce back, about 8 of them bounce back. We need your correct email address so that we can send you the links and all that. And the books and the bags will also be sent across to all of us. Thank you for participating.
Thank you very much, everybody. On that note, thank you, thank you, thank you. See you soon. Hoping that this will be a biannual.
Martin, it's good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How is Biden?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Martin, how is Biden? I understand you are signing into law, end of slavery tomorrow. Well done, no. Black Lives Matters.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody.
Martin, unmute yourself now.
Thank you, Yinka. Thank you very much. Yinka Shokunbi, are you from Guardian?
No.
The name is very familiar.
Oh, that is Wale Shokunbi. It's a girl. It's a woman like me. I am in Health Style Plus. I used to be with Independent.
Okay, fantastic.
Martins, greetings to Joe Biden.
Martins, unmute yourself.
So, Black Lives Matters. The Constitution of the US now recognizes the Black as a unit of.
that will be from tomorrow.
That's from tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. Congratulations. Yeah. You are now regarded as a full human being. All right, though. Bye-bye.
If anybody wants to get across to me, if anybody needs to get across to me, I've just put my email on the chat box now. So if anybody needs to get across to me, just in case you don't receive the email or something goes wrong, it's all there. Because like Chioma mentioned, Ms. Chioma mentioned, some people could not, emails bounce back. So my email is there. Send an email to me and I'll more than happy make sure you get the presentations, PowerPoint presentation, and the link to the recording. Thank you, everybody. We're waiting for people to drop off. Then Martin, we can catch up. Chioma has left. Chioma shouldn't have left. We need to debrief. Okay, who is just joining? Oh, okay, we'll send it to Bindi. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Waiting. We're to drop off, so we'll do a quick debrief. Hi, Martin. Hi, Martin. Your device is not speaking. Yeah. How did that go? Wale, are you still there? Wale, are you on? Are you one of those that just mute?
No, I've been following. I'm here.
Okay, so do we have all the email addresses that were popped on the chat box?
Yes, I did a screenshot. So maybe after the meeting,
what screenshot you did? I thought you'd be typing everything.
I was using my phone. So after the meeting, I will type them out and send to you.
Okay, I'm just talking now, Martin, so that you can read what we're saying on the screen. How do you think it went, Wale?
Yeah, it's okay, except from the timing. The timing is only, I could see Dr. Olubile and the rest has a lot to say. Even the ladies from Kenya, they all have very good points to say, but because of the timing, so the only thing I see is the timing. Maybe in subsequent meeting, we'll try and allow more time so that we can have more detailed discussion.
I totally agree with you. I agree with you. You're right about that. But we wanted to squeeze everything into 2 hours. And I know that when we were having our meeting, one of the key things that I mentioned to everybody, and I'm sure Martins will bear me witness, was that 2 hours was not going to be enough. But overall, I think we tried. We squeezed quite a lot of things in. And this just shows that there is appetite for a more detailed training in the future and for us to escalate this further. Martins, do you agree? Martins, do you agree? He's calling you Nazi. Calling you Nancy now. Okay, I think we just call it a day now, since we cannot interact. Okay, come back in.